Hello, and welcome to episode 27 of Chaos and Caffeine, where we will be talking about problems with this week we're going to be having bitter coffee, and we're going to talk about the dangers of what's called vibe consulting. Now, I came up with this name having also been involved in the programming industry, in which we run into something called vibe programming, where people basically rely completely on AI developed software, which has its own dangers. We are going to cover uh, the Killer Bee coffee. Janine got this for me to try out. It's made in San Diego. It claims that it's an Arabica coffee. I drove for 8 hours yesterday. I am bitter, tired, and sore. So this is the perfect topic. But anyways, it claims chocolate, blueberry, and slight sweetness. And how you get blueberry and slight sweetness, I don't know. I do know that as soon as I started the coffee, it's very aromatic. It's very nice. It claims to be 2 times caffeinated at 200 milligrams per cup, which is not particularly caffeinated. That's about normal. I think the average coffee cup is about 140. If you go to Starbucks, 200 milligrams is probably my light coffee. Most of the ones I drink start at 800 milligrams per 8-ounce cup. So let's go ahead. And she says it's nice and bitter for me. We are doing the Embrace Chaos cup today. Managed to fill this one up. Yeah, nothing sweet about this. Plus, it's perfect for my mood today. I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Um, Actually, not too bad at all. It definitely, it's not. She told me it was going to be bitter. It's not bitter, not compared to some of the roasts we've tried. But in any case, highly recommend it. That would be Killer Bee. Um, Killer Bee Better Buzz is the mix of this particular coffee. San Diego claims to be a small roaster, hand roasted stuff. So great. Okay, so let's get into. Oh, and finally, I meant one more thing too. We got these ordered. We have stickers now. We're working on some swag. Of course, we have the Vox Machina Electricae, which means the voice of the electric machine. Reliasquatch stickers, and of course, Reliasquatch approved. We will be giving a couple of these away this week for podcast listeners. So I will announce how we're doing that, and I'll put the uh, you know the thing in the comments. So let's get into Vibe Consulting. I am going to be talking about reliability and industrial engineering disciplines, a little bit of sarcasm, and obviously a questionable amount of coffee. I've already had some caffeine this morning, otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to move. Um, we were up. Well, I'll get into a story first that leads into why this particular topic. I was going to do a slightly different topic this week, but numerous service calls. I mean, I was putting them off in December a little bit as we had our software development stuff we wanted to finish up, and just call after call, we're having these horrible problems. So this week alone, or actually last week, we're talking about 55 MVA, 55 megawatt, 13,800 volt generator as one issue. And in another one, a natural gas plant with horrific problems, and then a wind site. And, it just keeps going on. And in every case, we're not back to basics, folks. So we are going to also, because I'm going to bring this to the forefront, I am going to be asking ChatGPT a few questions. We're going with the British accent because, British accent. So in any case, why do I say dangers of vibe consulting? Well, let's talk about what vibe consulting is. because I know the first thing people are going to know is he going to talk about vibration? Well, I mean, yeah, kind of. Some of them are, but that's neither here nor there. Vibe consulting is basically when someone provides guidance or recommendations or decisions based upon just general best practices, stuff that other people have done, no real world experience, broad templates, confident sounding language, generic dashboards. Gotta love those generic dashboards. That seems to be the hallmark of 2025, and we're seeing them in 2026. Ooh, little line saying that this is the problem. Well, yeah, okay, no. And then buzzwords like digital transformation, basically the buzzwords, right? But mostly, like on LinkedIn and other places, you start seeing all of these little emojis next to the bullet points. Guess what that is? That is somebody using something like ChatGPT, which is free if you want to use it, things like that. So now everybody can be a consultant. Why not? Basically, chatbot driven drivel. And it sounds confident. And in virtually every case, like we went in, one had to do with the alignment of equipment. I mean, there's a lot of other things that were going on there. And I walk in and all these big, we're talking about 4160-volt motors, over 1,000 horsepower, sitting on these little hockey pucks underneath the feet. This isn't the first time we've seen it. This is now a consistent problem since after 2020. Okay, so a lot of the experienced folks are gone. Even some of the experienced folks are falling back because it's easy. I mean, I use AI, these chat bots a lot. However, I don't rely upon whatever it's telling me. I go through and I reread the stuff and I verify that it's doing what I want. I'll do it for certain things, like did I forget something? Did I miss something? I'm old now. But in any case, so these motors on these little hockey pucks, and then on top of that, shims underneath it. This was the OEM. And then they brought in an alignment company with one of those happy alignment tools that gives a smiley face when you're all aligned. But to the folks using that lazy equipment, and I call it lazy equipment. I'm lazy. I like to get things done once. I just don't like going back and doing it again. So I lazily get it done right the first time. So I don't have to work again on the same thing. I'd rather get it done and get rid of it. But I learned from people with a lot of experience. So I know when I walk in and I work on an alignment system, I go in and I'll do an alignment. Folks, sometimes you'll see me and you don't see me actually doing the work, but that's how my career started. I am not some guy who went to school and then got out and ran around saying I knew everything about reliability and maintenance. Especially, I don't have a marketing background. So I basically did the work. I've been a journeyman winder. I've been a mechanic. I've been a field service guy. I've done the data. I've corrected the systems. My consulting work, and I take that knowledge and help put it into standards. I don't rely upon what other people have written. I have had to have done it, if you know what I mean. So I go and I look at these things. This is not, oh, I read it in a book and, oh, look, or hey, ChatGPT, look at this picture and tell me what's wrong. Mind you, I have done that. We're got some interesting things coming up. But I'm going to ask ChatGPT a question here. Let's see if we can pick it up on the microphone. This will be interesting. So I tested it to see if it kind of works. So voice and, whoops. Here we go. Let's get into the conversation.
Hey there. Glad to have you here.
See, there we go. So I'm going to ask you a simple question.
Absolutely. Go right ahead. I'm all ears and ready for your question.
Okay, so it looks like it's working.
No worries at all. Sometimes it takes a moment to get things rolling. Just take your time, and whenever you're ready, we'll dive right into it.
Okay, so this will be about electric machinery alignment. So I have an existing piece of equipment and I have a laser alignment tool. what are the steps I would take to align an electric motor with a solid coupling to a pump?
Sure, I can walk you through that. So basically, when you're aligning an electric motor to a pump with a laser alignment tool, you want to start by making sure everything's kind of roughly in position, so the motor and the pump are close to where they need to be. And then you mount the laser alignment tool on the shafts or the couplings, according to the tool's instructions. After that, you'll take some initial readings. The laser tool will help you see whether you need to move the motor up, down, left, or right to get it perfectly aligned. Then you'll make those small adjustments. Usually you'll be adjusting the motor's position because the pump is often fixed. And once you get those readings to show that everything's within spec, nice and aligned, you just tighten everything down and do a final check. So in a nutshell, you're just using that laser tool to measure, adjust, and then confirm that everything's in line. Let me know if you need any more details on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm glad I could help. If you have any other questions as you go along, just let me know and we'll keep the podcast prep going.
So my question to you was, that correct? And I'll tell you, pretty much. So what it did is it said, use the alignment tool, get everything nice and close together, rough it in, and just go for it. What did it forget? Did it forget to tell you to take a look at the base, make sure the grouting's right, make sure that you're level, make sure you don't have the potential for softfoot, make sure the surfaces that are coming together are plain metal, make sure that you don't have problems with the feet on the motor, make sure that the bolts are right, make sure that you don't have other conditions that are going to cause problems, make sure any piping is not bound, make sure that you don't have problems with basically or fractures and damaged welds. Do an inspection of where you're going to put the machine. All of the steps that you're supposed to do pre-alignment. Make sure that you're not going to be putting in an inch of shims. You should only be putting in 2 or 3 shims, 5 at the most. Okay, there's standards behind some of this stuff. Yet what we see constantly is people will use these tools to tell you the basics. So let's ask it another question. Give it a
You there?
yes.
Absolutely. If there's anything else that comes to mind, just let me know. I'm here whenever you need a hand.
So what did you forget in the alignment process based upon standards for aligning a motor and a pump?
You're testing me a bit. Fair enough. One thing I didn't explicitly mention is doing a proper softfoot check before you dive into the final alignment. In other words, you want to make sure the motor is sitting evenly on its base and that there's no gap under any of the feet that could cause it to shift when you tighten it down. Also, depending on the standards or best practices, you might recheck the alignment after the machine has run up to operating temperature, just to make sure everything is still in spec once it's warmed up. So those are a couple of little extra alignment steps that are often part of the standard process. Good catch.
There are a few other things that we need to talk about related to that, and one of those is the pre-alignment inspections of components, including the machines and the base. Now, you didn't mention those. Why didn't you mention those?
Absolutely, and that's a great point to bring up. So, one of the key reasons I didn't dive into the pre-alignment inspections right off the bat is just that I was giving kind of a quick general overview. But you're totally right. Before you start doing the actual alignment, it's super important to inspect everything. You want to check that the base is clean, stable, and free of any damage. You want to make sure the coupling surfaces aren't worn out or misaligned to begin with. And of course, you want to make sure the motor and pump themselves are in good condition and properly mounted before you even start the alignment process. So yeah, those pre-alignment inspections are definitely a crucial step, and it's great that you highlighted them. Thanks for catching that.
Do you recommend that somebody with no experience utilize AI as a methodology to perform an alignment?
That's a really interesting question. So, generally speaking, if someone has absolutely no experience with alignment or machinery, AI can be a helpful guide or a supportive tool. It can give you instructions, best practices, and even some troubleshooting tips. But it's important to remember that AI is more like a really knowledgeable assistant rather than a hands on expert who's there in person. In other words, if someone is brand new to the process, it's often still a good idea to either have an experienced person supervising or to get some hands on training first. AI can really help guide them and make things a lot easier, but it's always good to have a bit of real world oversight, especially when you're dealing with machinery for the first time.
So, as you can see, this is one of the concerns I have with this vibe consulting approach. You notice that I had to dig in and ask questions, and the only reason I thought to ask those questions is because I understood the process. Now, it did point out a couple of things that I hadn't mentioned, which included the conditional coupling. So, does it make for a good assistant? Is it good to assist you in remembering things? Of course. I've never said anything otherwise. I do have specific concerns about people relying upon this type of thing and looking for the shortcut. Because right off the bat, if I go and I want to use a tool, like for instance, I'll instead of pointing at other stuff, I'll even talk about ours. So our new tools, the vibration, Empower Vibe, the Empower Current Signature Analyzer, and even the Empath system all provide detailed guidance for people and including answers. Now, are those answers 100% correct? They're very correct. However, we recommend that that provides guidance, and the more you learn of the technology, the more accurate you're going to be and the better you're going to be. And we're building tools in there to assist a user in becoming experienced, because we know there's not a lot of experience out there right now. We know that 2020 was a horrible year for the exodus of experienced people as we have new people coming in right now. And this is not saying, I'm not, believe me, I'm not saying Gen Y, Gen Z, or even I think technically I fall under Gen X. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. I mean, I go back, and if you remember, you probably can't see it, but I wrote a book some time ago, Physical Asset Management for the Executive. And in the beginning, I talk about everything we were talking about 20 years ago, as a matter of fact, well before Gen Z. Um, we were talking about, oh, these new people, lazy, da 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 da. Well, 1911, the same thing was said about the generation that ended up fighting World War One, and a lot of them into World War Two. So we're talking about what turned into the greatest generation. So the new generation, as I'm talking about this, I'm not saying, hey, you bad. What I am saying is a lot of the experiences left the industry. Most of what we're running into right now, we've seen before. There's no back to basics. Everybody's leaping forward saying they have to do all this stuff without any preparation whatsoever, which is a horrible mistake. Okay, so when we're talking about things like, site specific engineering, measurable outcomes, actual troubleshooting, root cause analysis, and any type of maintenance plan that's going to survive your time at your company, or if you're doing consulting, it requires more than going and asking the question of literally a chatbot. As some of the jokes and memes have been out there, the old Microsoft Clippy, which comes before a lot of you. So basically, it was a little tool that would pop up if you had help questions, and it would be animated, and you could put in your question for the help thing, and it would sit there and type everything out. I don't know, basically like what we're calling AI right now. Okay, so yes, use it as a tool, but you have to be careful. Let's talk about some examples. Okay, so first example, we walk in, and uh, you know, this company had repair shops and consultants and everybody else in there, and they're all looking at everything. And this is one, if you've been following me at all last year, you know that it was like weekly last year when we were in the field. It would be, oh my God, there's no inverter rated cable between a drive and a motor. And we're not talking about small motors, we're talking about good sized motors, right? Let alone medium voltage. And I've seen this over and over and over again, where you'd have individual conductors down through there, usually with the ground lead in with them, and they're wondering why they're going through bearings. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's part of it. Okay, so cable grounded at both ends, 360 degrees with a shield on it, and then the grounds are placed specifically so you don't induce into ground. This is basic electrical stuff. But for some reason, it's become the norm to ignore. Heck, it's in the manuals. Every drive manual that I'm aware of has which cabling to use, or they have a separate manual with guidance on installation with the cables. Nobody's putting filters on their drives. Why? Well, because the people don't understand that are giving the advice. Worse is I'm seeing that same thing coming from OEMs in some cases when the experienced folks are gone and all the new schools are teaching people is how to use software. There's no practical anything anymore. And so these people are coming out into industry and they're supposed to now be the experts, and all they have, and I blame this on the schools, I don't blame this on the students. My intern's I'm not going to say he's a genius because, I'm his boss. I'm not allowed to say those things, but he's sharp. He wants to get in the field. He wants to learn. And we have others that work with us that want to get in the field. They want to learn. Where are they going to learn except by people that have field experience? You know what I mean? It's like I can't go and ask these questions of a chatbot. And you heard it. It even said that it explained what it was. It says, I'm basically an assistant. I am not there. I don't have the expertise. And that's true. So as I'm watching, and here's the other scary one. I heard this on the news and it was being promoted by a channel. I was kind of surprised it was promoting it, but I get it because they lean a certain way politically. And that was that they were encouraging and they were promoting a particular school that was taking, young people starting in at 5 years old and having them spend all but 2 hours using AI. Okay, what does every study tell you about that? It eliminates critical thinking. So what, we want a bunch of drones? I don't. I mean, especially in our industry, I don't want people who cannot think through stuff. I mean, everything we do in the reliability and maintenance industry, let alone the energy industry, engineering, anything like that, requires critical thinking. The term vibe consultant, which, by the way, started out as an April Fool's joke, as a job placement. Hi, we're looking for a vibe programmer, somebody who could program off their feelings using AI. Okay, well, now we're starting to do that in the reliability and maintenance industry, let alone using people that, like I said, LinkedIn, I think every fourth or fifth post I'm seeing now has all of those little emojis next to it that indicate that it was off of AI. And the problem with that is, well, it looks accurate, and some of what's in there is accurate. I've seen some of them up there that are outright dangerous. How do I wire up a motor? Well, you immediately go and you turn off the power and then you shove your hands in, skipping all the safety steps. Let's see. Heh. Hello. What are the steps to electrically connect a 4,160 volt motor when it's being put back into place?
Sure. So connecting a 4160-volt motor is definitely a high voltage job, and safety is a top priority. The steps usually go something like this. First, you want to make sure everything is locked out and tagged out so that no power is going to that motor while you're working on it. Then you'll want to verify with a meter that there's absolutely no voltage present. Next, you'll typically connect the motor leads according to the wiring diagram. For a 4160-volt motor, that usually means you're dealing with medium voltage terminations, and you'll have specific cables and lugs to match. You'll connect each phase conductor to the correct terminal, making sure everything is torqued down to the manufacturer's specifications. After that, you want to double check all your connections, make sure your grounding is properly in place, and then once everything is set, you'll remove your lockout tagout and do a controlled energization to test the motor. So in short, it's all about careful safety checks, following the wiring diagram, ensuring everything's tight and grounded, and then powering up carefully. And of course, if you're not experienced with high voltage, definitely get someone who's qualified to be there with you, because it's always good to have that expertise on hand.
Obviously learned from my last question, or it was listening while I was speaking. So in any case, that's the other thing, and I'll mention this too. Watch this. I'm going to start a new chat. I just want to make a point.
Hey there, how's it going?
Hello, how are you doing? I would like you to give me the steps necessary to connect a 4160 volt motor.
Hey there, I'm doing great, thanks for asking. Sure, I can walk you through how to connect a 4160-volt motor. So typically the steps you'd follow are something like this. First, you want to make sure everything is locked out and tagged out for safety, because that's a high voltage to be working with. Then you want to double check all your connections and make sure your motor leads are clearly identified and matched to the appropriate terminals. After that, you'll connect the motor leads to the proper power supply terminals according to the wiring diagram. And of course, you'd want to make sure you have the proper protection, like a medium voltage starter or appropriate switchgear. Finally, once everything is connected, you'll do a test run and monitor for any issues. So those are the general steps, but if you have any specifics in mind, feel free to let me know.
So even while it did mention lockout tagout in both cases, there's certain steps that it did skip in both cases, and you notice if you listened, and if you didn't, go back and listen again. I got two completely different answers. And what will often happen in vibe consulting is they'll take whichever one and without doing the human in the loop portion, which is verify it. So if I am going to use AI to assist, and again, as I've stated, I'm not shy when it comes to the use of AI. I'm AI. Well, I'm not opposed to the use of machine learning systems or AI, as we're calling it, chatbots. I am concerned about the expertise of the people using it and some of the things that have been warned about. And that's basically what I've been saying the whole time is cautionary. It hallucinates. It still hallucinates. We use it, for instance, we actually jokingly refer to our, because that's the paid version, by the way, that we've nicknamed it Reliasquatch. So each of the people uses a different version. I use that particular voice because, well, right now I do. I switch it for other reasons at other times, but it's there to assist you. It's there to help, and we use it even in our programming so that we have a common format. We use it to help us check behind us on certain things, some of the junior programming stuff that we would normally do. And then we have to do a careful review. We do a full product review. There's standards we follow, IEEE standards we follow in software development. So in the end, yeah, it's a great tool. It's a great assistant, as it's already stated that. But as you can see, in one it was a little bit better and it mentioned terminations, and the other one it didn't mention terminations at all. It did mention lockout tagout, and by the way, I'd asked it the questions preparatory, and I said, "Oh, you forgot lockout tagout." So now it's remembered that I mentioned lockout tagout because we're using the company version. It actually remembers all of our discussions. However, as I mentioned, it also puts in usually some deferrals like, oh, have somebody with experience or whatever. But you also heard the alignment thing. It did a basics. It said basically trust the alignment tool. Then I pushed it further because I know more about the alignment. But it was somebody with little to no experience, as what we're finding in the field. They'll ask for assistance, they'll ask for detail, but they don't get all of the information. So you have to be extremely careful. And this comes down to a conversation I've had with some others in the industry. When you talk to somebody who's offering to do consulting work, they should have an actual background in it. Back, in the day, back in the day, back when we wrote on rocks or used chisels, um, and our the tires on our vehicles were still stone. We would actually, if you said you were a consultant, you had done the work, you had the experience, you had built a company, you had, if it was reliability and maintenance, you had aligned a machine, you had done the work, you had done this and that, you have something of substance there. We're not seeing that anymore because people are finding themselves unemployed or can't find work. They're suddenly consultants. So there are functions and capabilities for doing that, but when you're talking to or trying to reach out to somebody to help you consult, you need to verify that they have the background necessary to do it. And I used to say, look for their certifications. But if you notice, the length of my signature is getting longer and longer and longer. It's not just because I go, oh, I'll get certifications in this. No, it's because I'm making a point showing that it's become too damn easy to get certified in things. Heck, if you go to my LinkedIn and you look at all of the courses I've taken with some of the big universities in AI and machine learning. Now, mind you, I used to teach it in the 1990s. But when you look at that, all of the certifications you got, and you realize that I'd knock out a 12-week course in a weekend. I'm not bragging. It was just the substance was not what I would have liked, if you know what I mean. I had some experience. Their advanced ones I would call basic. So the idea is the fast dopamine hit. Oh, I succeeded. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did that. Oh, I did this. Well, if you're going to do that, do something else. Do a hobby. But for reliability and maintenance, you shouldn't be in it for the grandeur. I'm sorry, you're not going to get a lot of attention from executives. I maybe have twice in my career, and that's across 40 years, been drawn into a boardroom to go and rescue a project, that kind of thing. So in the long run, um, again, I'm this is going to be nice because it's kind of shorter. Remember, um, you know, I'm using the term vibe consulting. The last one you heard me use condition-based reactive maintenance, which basically means that the tools are telling you that something's already failed. And part of this whole thing, part of the vibe consulting thing, is people are making recommendations for CBRM versus CBM technologies, not understanding the differences. And that's the other thing that goes along with the vibe consulting. So this has been an interesting topic. I'm keeping it deliberately short because yesterday on the drive home, I took a nice solid, just over an hour chatting with a friend of mine on this topic. It could go on for a long time. Now, I mentioned these, so what we're going to do is basically, I'm going to have a way for you to, just email info@motordoc.com, and we're going to randomly select somebody before the next Chaos and Caffeine, possibly multiple people. Make sure your company name and address is in there because we're going to use you as a lead. Don't worry, you'll just be added to the newsletters. But in any case, yeah, the mailing addresses will be needed so that we can get you the swag. If there's no company and mailing address in there, of course you're not going to receive it. That would disqualify you. Make sure you have basically some type of contact information in there. And with that, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Saturday. Now that I have tested this out, next Saturday we are going to do a full interview with ChatGPT on a reliability and maintenance topic. Haven't decided what that topic is yet. Should be interesting. It'll depend on what we run into this week, just like this discussion. And with that, have a great day.